Hello everyone and a happy new year to you. We'll be back to our regular Brainwaves episodes next week. For now, I've got a few interviews that I did at Dragonmeet 2024. They're with a variety of folk from the Dragonmeet show floor, and we hope you enjoy. I'm here at the Mass Hall Press stall, but also with All These Checkers Publishing, and with Jason Price, who's the designer of a few of the games here. What is it you make, Jason? What games do you have here?
Yes, I've got a bit of a split between two types of games. I've got a kind of solo journaling games.
Yeah.
Probably the game I'm best known for is a game called Notorious, which is a solo game about sci-fi bounty hunters in space, very Star Wars inspired.
Okay.
You sort of play through the story of a bounty hunter, you roll it all up with 2 d6 dice, and then you play a story where you hunt down your target, have confrontations along the way until you have a big final showdown with them and an epilogue based on the choices you've made throughout the story.
Yeah.
There's also an expansion to that called Outsiders, which introduces double the amount of prompts and double the amount of characters and new planets kind of set on the outer rim of the galaxy.
Sure. But the game that attracted me to your stall is called Revolt. Can you tell me a little bit about that? It's got this glorious cloth map, fantasy kingdom kind of thing going on.
So my favourite type of games personally are games where you play with no GM, and this is one of those, probably my favourite, or one of my own games actually. So it's played out on a big cloth map with like a fantasy kingdom drawn on it, and it's all set in a fantasy world where there is like essentially an evil monarchy that's come in and invaded and killed the existing queen. Okay. And all the factions are kind of insectoid factions, but they're all based on sort of societal roles. So you've got the soldiers, you've got the artists, the presidents, etc., and everyone's playing an individual faction. You travel around the map individually, trying to gather support for the revolt that's happening, drawing cards and playing through 4 different stages. Yeah. Those cards give you questions to answer. They tell you what's happening at the sites you've chosen, and as you do that, you build up a picture of the map. And by the end of the game, you'll have overthrown the monarchy, and whoever's gathered the most support becomes the new monarch. But the moral of the tale is that there can really be no monarchy that satisfies every citizen's whims. So what it does is sets up a second game where you play with a different monarchy, a new set of factions and a new set of cards. So there's a legacy aspect to it. But it's about lots of satisfying one-shots, either in one session or as a kind of a legacy campaign. And very, very tactile game with lots of illustrative components and fun to play at the table.
What is it you're sort of playing yourself at the moment? Outside of your own games, what would you recommend?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm trying to find time for all the many games that I own that I haven't played.
I know that feeling, yeah.
Yeah, what's the most recent game I've played? I'm trying to think what it would be. Yes, board game-wise, would have been a game called Arcs, which is by Leader Games. So Revolt is actually very inspired by a game called Root and Oath. I kind of took my favourite elements of both of them and made it into an RPG, basically.
Nice.
But yeah, Arcs, a new game, is we've been playing that a lot, and we're going to get to the campaign of that soon. And
I just did a whole campaign in a day recently.
Yeah, we've only played single player so far, and we've only just introduced the random factions to the game, so we're building up to it. But love that.
Well, thanks so much for your time.
No problem. Thank you.
I'm here with Chris Lowry at the Beyond Cataclysm stall. What is Beyond Cataclysm all about, Chris?
We are a micro publisher.
Okay.
Which means...
It's like a microbrewery?
Yeah, it's like a microbrewery, so everything tastes slightly weird. We're not big. We're never going to be big.
Sure.
We don't want to be big. When we talk to the big people, the main conversations are about pallets rather than mechanics.
Yeah.
I'm much more interested in dice rolling than I am about where we're storing things.
Shipping and logistics, yeah, okay.
So we print quite a few of our own books. We do some fiction. Right. We actually started from a quote from John Wyndham, from Day of the Triffids.
Right.
Something along the lines of, I can't remember it, I should remember it, but it's something along the lines of, we live in a peculiar world where we consider ourselves to be beyond the threat of cataclysm.
Okay.
So kind of talking about the impending crisis ahead of us. So everything we do that we print is recycled. All our parceling's recycled. It's also, everything we post out is hand decorated, which is incredibly inefficient. So we posted out 2,000 parcels for fulfillment so far this year.
Wow.
Everyone has been hand decorated with a handwritten note in it as well.
By you personally, or
me, Dave, my daughter, various people.
Cool. But you're not only a publisher, you basically sort of like a shop as well for other RPGs?
Yeah, so our aim is to try and stock everything that's cool, which isn't possible because there's so much cool stuff.
Yeah.
But, so we were I think we were probably the first people to get in the first edition Mothership zines. We didn't get the boxes in because we don't like boxes, we like zines. Yeah. So we've got all the individual zines. Other people got the boxes. The boxes are really cool. If you want to come and get just the player's guide, we've got that, and we things like that. So we try and be. We were the first in the UK to have Slug Blaster for 3 years, and then immediately sold out within about 8 seconds of Quinn's doing a review.
Yeah, I wonder what happened there. Yeah,
but yeah, we do have lots more of those coming in as well. But yeah, so we like to reach out and become friends with people, and then stock their stuff.
Yeah. So because the indie RPG scene's been like kind of exploding over the last few years. Like, what do you think that's down to? That sort of like rise and like sort of lots of independence coming out of the woodwork.
That is a really interesting question, and I don't necessarily have the answer to it. I think all of us as indie people, like people who are like, a lot of us come from like the punk scene with a bit of that aesthetic, and so the hegemony of D&D, like I think COVID did something weird. I don't really know what it did, but it did something weird that kind of galvanized. I think it galvanized a lot of people into creativity. And then naturally, when you're being creative, you want to create something new. So like a lot of people have made adventures in D&D, and D&D can be loads of fun. But I think when you really want to create something new, you create something completely new, don't you? And so I think there's been a big push of that. And I think, I don't know, I encounter a lot of people dissatisfied with the world and their current jobs. So I'm a doctor, but here I am selling nonsense. And you could argue, shouldn't I just be, at work saving lives and that I'm being selfish? And I don't necessarily have a good answer to that. But I do know that often at work, I come home feeling very unfulfilled.
Sure.
And at the end of today, I'm going to be tired, but I'm going to feel like I've had an opportunity to really engage with a lot of people and do some cool, fun stuff.
Do you want to turn this into like a full-time job?
No.
Fair enough.
I think I would like it to be so we've just got to the point after 3 years where I get paid a small amount each month. Doesn't cover my mortgage, but we've got to the point of a bit of sustainability.
Sure.
And Dave, who we work with, who I love Dave, this has been his wife rang me and said, "Thank you for giving Dave the best job he's ever had." And that's cool, because I'm just scribbling on nonsense with my mate. And we've managed to achieve that. So helping disadvantaged people. So the first thing we did before we got paid, and I'm not trying to boast about us, we supported a food bank. So that was a priority for us. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have a creative fund for a disadvantaged creator. So we're going to allow applications in, and what we'll do is we'll help them run a Kickstarter. We'll cover their printing costs, and then we'll do their fulfillment for them as well. So
when you get around to doing that and get in touch with me, I'll advertise that on the cast for sure. It's definitely the sort of thing we want to talk about on Brainwaves.
Exactly, and we want to reach out to to support people who are disadvantaged, because I'm a doctor. I don't need your help. As in, we need to make sure that people who haven't. The reality is that we're here because I have the privilege to be able. Sorry if I've got horribly woke here or whatever, but
shocked and appalled.
We've got the privilege that I can have worked sort of unpaid on this for 3 years, and what we need to do is make sure that really cool people who are worthy of love and creativity and who shouldn't just be trapped in Tesco's or whatever, that they can do it too. So we're trying to pay that back, but also we need to actually make a bit of money to do that, so we're trying to, it's a balance, isn't it? None of us are perfect on that front.
No, indeed. So I've been asking all the people I've been interviewing this, what's your sort of game at the moment? What's the thing that you're most enthusiastic about? You're playing yourself, or just something you think is really cool? What's the thing that people should be checking out?
Yeah, that is interesting. I could bang on about Slug Blaster because we've had it for ages, but actually, if I'm going to highlight one, the game that I've found myself thinking about a lot is Signal to Noise.
Yeah, I've got a copy myself. I'm about to play it, so I'm really looking forward to it.
To those people who haven't encountered it, it's from Lunar Shadow, Craig at Lunar Shadow, and it's you're two people on a generation ship going further and further away from each other. So you start a month apart, and then 3 months, and then 9 months, and then 2 years, or whatever, and you write letters to each other. But what you do is, as you get further away, the signal gets knackered, and so you do search and replace. So you get rid of all the T's and replace them with J's or whatever. And the first few letters, it's fine, but as you get further and further along, you get to a point where suddenly you just can't understand at all anything of what the letter says, and then you're done. And I played it with my son, who's, I think he's 14 or maybe 13, something. He's that kind of age. And we played a couple of years ago, and I was like, it's my son. He's on a different ship from me. He's disappearing. So I actually found it really emotional. Yeah. And he was like, why are you going on about this, Dad? This is nonsense. But yeah, so I would recommend that as a fun little thing to check out. But yeah.
Thanks very much for your time, Chris.
Thanks very much.
Cheers. I'm at the Planet Smasher Games stall at Dragonmeet 2024. I'm here with Mike Hutchinson, who's the creator of some of the games here. What does Planet Smasher Games do, Mike?
Hello there. So Planet Smasher Games is my mostly miniature game company.
Right.
I created Gaslands a number of years ago now, and I've sort of been working with Osprey to create a couple of games. Billion Suns was my second, and I obsessively write miniature games. And so at the start of the year, I actually quit my career to try and take tabletop game creation full time.
Okay, well, what was it you were doing before then?
I was working for Epic Games.
Okay.
And so I am in the process of prototyping a ton of ideas that I had locked in my brain and getting them out into what you see before you here on the stall is a colourful spread of cheery zines that I've created. So I challenged myself.
I mean, cheery might be a strange word for some of the titles I'm seeing here.
That might be true. So in the summer, I challenged myself to come to Dragonmeet with 8 new games.
Wow, okay.
I only managed 7. So these 7 are
That's pretty good going in that time. It's all the same.
Thank you. So these 7 are all printed in the last month, finished and printed in the last month. They are mostly miniature skirmish games. So we have Space Gits, my dexterity game of drunken orcs, which is you roll dice into the play area, and where those dice land, that's where your orc will literally move towards. When you shoot, you roll a dice, the bullet travels towards that dice. And when you activate or take wounds, you have to stack up your dice into a little tower and move them around with the orc. If the dice tower falls over, so does the orc. But also, in this display here is my first role-playing game.
Yeah, you were just telling me about this. Yeah, so how does that work?
So this is a role-playing game called The Crawling Chaos, and it is a one-player, many GMs horror game. So the one player is the narrator. They speak only in the first person. And the other players play the architects of their inevitable eldritch doom.
Okay.
And they have access to a small pool individually of different aspects of the story that they can control. And as they spend from those pools, they introduce adversaries, introduce interruptions, threaten the narrator, and also reduce the narrator's composure and vigor and ignorance to the point where they can threaten them finally with an eldritch doom. And if you're the architect that successfully consummates the demise of the narrator, then you get to narrate the stinger at the end of the tale, and you get to be the narrator in the next. So it's a zero prep story game, plays out in about 90 minutes.
Cool. The miniatures games you do you do like a miniatures line for them, or are they to be used with other miniatures? Or
so my particular obsession and interest is with what people call miniature agnostic games.
Right. Okay.
So I don't make miniature lines. What I make is games that you can use for other people's miniatures. So with Gaslands, that was Hot Wheels toy cars. Turns out the world's most readily available source of miniatures, was sleeping in plain sight.
Nice.
But with my most recent major game project, Hobgoblin, Brutal Fantasy Battles, this is very much designed so that you can play with any fantasy miniatures you want, and you can assemble them into giant ranks of fantasy armies and then smash them together in about 90 minutes, because I'm a dad and I want to have big bloody combats, but I only have a certain amount of time. So all of these are miniature agnostic games. I think about it like your miniature collection is your Nintendo Entertainment System. Sure. I'm selling the software cartridges that you can play with your miniatures.
Sure. I asked this to quite a lot of folks as well. So what's a game that you'd recommend to our listeners that's not one of yours at the moment? What's exciting you in the sort of UK tabletop industry right now?
Well, so my friend Glenn and I, who I'm stood next to, we run a podcast called the Rule of Carnage podcast. And we recently played a boxed board game called Redwood.
Okay.
And that's a super interesting game because it is essentially the same as these miniature games that I make. Secretly, it's a miniatures game. It's actually a game about taking photographs of wildlife.
Oh, I've heard about this.
You move using movement templates. It's about line of sight.
It's got sort of X-Wing style templates and stuff.
So just like Gaslands or X-Wing, it's almost the same, but it's wrapped up in this very, very lovely non-combat, nothing to do with war, taking pictures of animals, which is fun because in the first-person shooter genre of video games, some of the first not shooting games were also about photography, Pokemon Snap, Beyond Good and Evil. So I think
remember the
Redwood,
Fatal Frame series as well, that sort of horror series where you're taking photos of ghosts to like back them off.
So I think it's a lovely game. It's very well produced and it's fun, but it's just like as a curiosity, I think Redwood is a very interesting step forward.
Cool. Well, thanks very much for your time, Mike.
Yeah,
Cheers. I'm here with Shan from RPG Taverns. What is RPG Taverns about, Shan? Like, how long have you been doing it?
Yeah, sure. So for RPG Taverns for us, it was, we know everyone's got really busy schedules and can't really get a game together anymore these days. Finding a group of people who want to play D&D every week consistently is very difficult in London especially as well. So for us, it was designing a place where you have sort of persistent world. You can rock up by yourself or with your friends as well, and just rock up and play. And you've got a whole community there already waiting to play with you. You can rock up on a table full of strangers and have an incredible time.
Fantastic.
So what we do is we have our own GMs. So the GMs run the game for you in that persistent world. And you come in, buy a ticket, play a game that evening. And you're in that world for the next 2-3 hours.
Do you have to book in for a particular evening, or can you just turn up whenever you want? Or
it's ticketed, so you buy a ticket in advance, but you're buying a ticket to play at RPG Taverns. It's not you're buying a ticket for this specific GM or with this specific person. Sure. We do have the option available, but the general sense is more buy a ticket to come play, and more often than not, it'll be a table of strangers, probably first. But over time, you get to know everyone. Everyone's your friend there. It's all a really great space.
You mentioned a persistent world there. Is that, so do you have like a sort of ongoing setting that you guys are creating and that people adventure in?
Yeah, exactly. So we've got a team of creatives who build out the actual world and the story as well. Right. There's an overarching story that all the games will be running in. Okay. So you go into a table. There'll be 4 tables on that day, and everyone will be running something within that same world. And there may be crossovers between different tables. They may have impacts on the next day or the day after. We'll have finale tables where on a Saturday we'll run a full finale from the morning through to the evening. And every table will sort of be building up to a big finale moment.
Ooh, wow, that's a long day of gaming.
People do it. People do it. They
I
come
can
from Saturday sort of 11 till 10.
Wow.
All day. So
is the venue you've got, is that like a gaming store as well, or is it just for RPG Taverns?
So it used to be an immersive theatre space.
Okay.
So before it was an immersive theatre space, they had their own bar as well, which we've co-opted as well. So we've got a full, like a pub style bar, I'd say. And then there's 5 different rooms and a 6th sort of small room we can use as well. Mm-hmm. And they're all separate rooms, so all the games are in separate rooms and you don't have too much noise pollution between them. Sure. So it's your own sort of enclosed space where you can really get into the game as well. Nice. And there's only music. We've got massive, 40-inch TV screens as well.
Yeah, I had a wee peek into the room that you've got set up at Dragonmeet here with some very impressive displays set into the tables.
Yes, yeah. So, big screens and animated maps as well. They really get into using all the resources we have because we've got a lot of terrain, a lot of minis. We can provide all of that to all these gems to use. And they really make the most of it.
So is it just D&D you're running at the moment?
So primarily D&D because that's what most people want to do. Yeah, sure. But we are really branching out into other games as well. So we're running Call of Cthulhu, Blades in the Dark.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a big fan of Blades in the Dark.
Yeah. It's a really big seller actually. There's a lot of people who are really into it in London. Also like Nice Marines.
Okay, the Grand Howard 2-pager. I know that one.
So some of the sort of smaller, shorter ones, which are easier to pick up quickly and just do once every couple of weeks or once every month or something.
So you do advertise those like you might like a special menu at a restaurant kind of thing? Yeah. Tonight is Blades Night or whatever, that kind of thing.
Yeah. We'll have like 1 or 2 games on and we'll say, these are our sort of special event section. We also do bigger ones like we do, the names escape me now. It's Blood on the Clock Tower. Oh, yeah. That's it. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, where you can do Blood on the Clock Tower like a bigger room. And that seems to go quite well with sort of large like parties or birthdays. Yeah. And even we're getting some like corporates coming in as well. Sure. Who want to run Blood on the Clock Tower with their team, which can be can be to watch.
I can imagine, especially if the boss is the werewolf or anything like that. Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah. So what's the plan for like in the future for RPG Taverns? What do you want to sort of achieve with it?
Yeah, so we're still pretty new. We're only 6 months in, so we're getting our feet off the ground. We're pretty much, I'd say we're settling now, but long term future, we're looking to expand for sure. Yeah. We're looking to get another venue in place. Sure. in the UK. We're not sure where in the UK yet.
Yeah.
But that's sort of like longer term plans. I mean, maybe abroad. Who knows? Who knows how we can grow this? But it's looking to see and just provide that space for TTRPGs, because there's a lot of board game cafes, but playing in TTRPG in a board game cafe
can be a little noisy. You want that space, that dedicated space.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's where we want to be in the UK, I'd say.
Cool. So I've been asking most people I've been interviewing this as well. What's the game that's sort of like lighting your fire right now? What are you playing yourself that's like really good?
Not TTRPG actually at the moment. One of my friends recently got Coup.
Oh right,
yeah,
classic.
And just getting ways around and just playing a bit of Coup. Just it's a nice way to have a nice quiet evening.
I remember there was a version of Q that went around a few years ago that was I think it was like a Spanish version of it, like with beautiful illustrations and like it was very, very nice. Not the sci-fi setting, but like more sort of like medieval kind of setting and beautiful illustrations. It's his birthday soon. I might have to get that for it. Yeah, I don't know if it's still available, but it was amazing. Anyway, thanks very much for your time, Shan. Appreciate it. I'm here with Finbar and Gary from Game Therapy UK. Can you tell me a little bit about Game Therapy UK and what you folks do?
Yeah, so Game Therapy UK, it's a registered charity. We've been going for about 3 years now, and we provide therapeutic gaming for free in the public space to people across the UK.
So what's that mean, therapeutic gaming?
Big question. So the main idea is, in its simplest form, is creating a safe space where people can start to engage and relax. It varies greatly with the different client groups we work with. So in the case of, say, the homeless sector, that's creating an environment where people can start to try and find their voice, their nervous system can start to regulate, and through gently introducing gaming ideas, because quite often they don't come from a gaming background, so we start off very simply. And this notion of building community for them and inclusion. And so they can have an afternoon regularly in their calendar that allows them somewhere to come and improve their mood, meet and hang out with people. So it can start all the way through to something that's much more complicated, where we have check-ins and check-outs and held space. And people will talk about their challenges and stuff. So, and that would be very different than, say, working with the veteran community, where they're running their own games and they're deliberately creating a kind of quite challenging and intense gaming experiences, which might feed into their kind of past experiences as soldiers, and they have their own collective group community, and they use Discord, and they've got a very organised system. So
as Finbar was saying, we run projects. So at the moment we're running projects in different areas. We're running projects for people experiencing homelessness across the UK, also survivors of modern day slavery, and people in addiction recovery. We're running projects for military veterans and serving soldiers. And then also this year we've started funded projects for young people. So we have projects for autistic young people and some kids with special educational needs. And also next year looking at young persons projects for young people experiencing homelessness and looked after and care. Looking ahead, it takes about a year to develop these projects. Looking ahead to next year, we're working on developing projects, forensic projects. So that's people involved in criminality. So we have the opportunity of going into Pentonville Prison, into Broadmoor, we think, and also another, the prisons and mental health services.
What sort of games is it that you sort of use in these sessions? Is it RPGs, is it board games?
I think RPGs are probably the most interesting area of development because there's so much going on. There's multiple ways of engaging, and it gives the client far more space to expand into. So we're game agnostic, but we would to design an intervention with any kind of game, really, if it would, what was most suitable, So in the terms of working in the homeless areas, we start off with really rules like role-playing experiences, where only a few stats and some dice and a lot of storytelling, and then we would slowly, as they become familiar with the experience, introduce rules and game, and it might turn into a fully fledged game of Dungeons and Dragons, for example. But at the same time, we could, design a intervention working with, a FIFA soccer tournament, where there were prizes and people, you know, and if that was where the hook for social inclusion gave us space to work, then that would be fine. You know,
so very eclectic, like cross digital and tabletop.
You know, I think Gary uses the phrase, you know, term game agnostic. You know, so that's very much.
So I think we'd be interested in projects using board games. So next year we've been asked to look at projects for people experiencing early dementia. Maybe board games might be more useful. I think there's a lot of interest in video gaming as well. There are other charities already doing that work, but I think we would again look at video games. As Finbar said, I think the thing that's really interesting about tabletop role-playing games is that they are cooperative. And I think the biggest challenge often for people is, and the biggest therapeutic benefit is the experience of gaming with other people. And they have that advantage. They're also infinitely designable. So video games, you know, you play a Baldur's Gate video game, it's a brilliant game. I'm sure it's very therapeutic playing the game, but it's taken millions of pounds and years to develop it. We can sit down with a pencil and a bit of paper, as anybody can who knows, and just make up a tabletop role-playing game. You know, so that's another advantage of that type of game.
And I think the idea of, you know, learning to kind of experiment with different personas, and the idea of your character being kind of, you know, drawn out of you. We've got, you know, somebody recently who normally is a fairly timid person and started playing a warrior, and the next minute we know they're, you know, chopping legs off and getting right into being a kind of, you know, mad axeman, and they were having a hilarious time, you know, kind of, and that for them was a completely new kind of broad experience. You're not really going to get that, you know, free form ability to just kind of create an element at that time and really run away with it, you know. So that's brilliant.
I think we think all games would be therapeutic. All games have got the potential of being therapeutic. They're just inherently therapeutic. Of course, all games potentially could be toxic. They can be harmful. It depends how you play them. So I think we spend a lot of our time. We have a lot of we have panels of experts thinking about how can we design or how can we co-create with the clients a game which maximizes the therapeutic benefit and minimizes the risk or mitigates against that risk of harm. And tabletop role-playing games, as Finbar said, are really, you know, the other thing they do is they reduce social isolation. They bring people together, which is inherently therapeutic. They're fun. They're again, just you just said, they're self-motivating. So again, inherently, you know, therapeutic.
Is the charity involved in research into sort of the therapeutic nature of games as well as the actual sort of practical side?
So
of it?
yes, the three charitable aims of the charity are one is to develop and deliver these evidence-based projects. The other two aims are one is to develop an evidence base. So we have a committee of academics, and we are partnered up with several universities, and the committee has been asked to ensure that all of our projects are linked to research projects, and these can be the beauty of being a charity like a UK-wide charity, which is very collaborative, is that we can get a large database. We can have lots of projects running. And so, it's a very important part of the charity is to develop that research base. We hope to have next year the first UK academic conference, where people can present research papers in it. And then just to announce, you be the first to know, we're hoping to announce we'll have a journal, the International Journal of Therapeutic Gaming, following on from the conference. So that's one of our big charitable aims. The third charitable aim is evidence-based teaching. So we want to share this knowledge of what is best practice. So again, then that would fall out of the research and the experience of doing the games.
What's the best way for our listeners to sort of help you folks out, like charitable donations, that kind of thing? How can they get involved?
Touch your website, gametherapy.co.uk.
Cool. Great. And I'm asking this to everyone. So what's your sort of game at the moment? Like, what are you into at the moment? What games are you playing yourself so you're enjoying?
Do you know, through the charity, I always want to play games other than Dungeons and Dragons, but everybody seems to want to play Dungeons and Dragons at the moment. The marketing's definitely working.
I mean, we use the analogy, it's kind of... it's like using the word Hoover for vacuum cleaner. It's just out there, and it's so inside the gaming community is wider. There's obviously lots more nuance and choice. But when you're working, with the local authority or delivering to people that aren't aware of it,
you want something big and pop.
Yeah, and as I said, it's quite often very stripped down and would be really rules light. So it's very it's probably not the full crunchy version of What am I playing at the moment? I'm playing some kind of modern mutants game where I can't remember what it's called now, but friend, we're playing that online. Or Stalker 2. Okay, right. Highly bugged but still brilliant. That's what I'm doing.
Sure. Oh, thanks very much, folks. Really
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thank you.
Well, there you go, folks. Hope you enjoyed all those interviews. They were with, in order, Jason from Always Checkers Publishing, Chris from Beyond Cataclysm, Mike from Planet Smasher Games, Shan from RPG Taverns, and Finbar and Gary from Game Therapy UK. Thanks so much for everyone who talked to me, and I'll put links to everyone's bits and pieces in the show notes. Like I said, Brainwaves will be back next week in its full usual form, and we'll see you then. Thanks very much for listening. Bye.